What's crackin' every pony? Ian here with the Technics SA-303. It is an FM/AM stereo receiver system. I've had this in my household for years. Believe my dad originally acquired this new that much long ago. It was just recently fished out from the attic along with other equipment that was used with this. It does indeed have a built-in FM/AM tuner. However, I don't have any of the antenna wires or other connections to make use of the radio functions. And even then, I'd be hard-pressed to get any decent reception from the basement where it's hooked up. It comes with connections for 2 tape decks, a phonograph record player, and 1 other auxiliary audio input. It should be noted that even though they're labeled and designated for each of those particular devices, they're all hooked up via dual RCA connections. That basically means I could take any stereo analog device and plug that in instead. And as for the recording outputs, I could instead connect them to a line-in and capture sound there instead of into a tape deck. The record player is slightly different. In addition to the 2 RCA it plugs into, there's also a ground wire connection. The contact spade fell off, presumably during storage, but I just wrapped the bare wire around and screw it in that way. I don't know if there's any negative consequence to that, or if it's even needed at all. Regardless, it is the only other antique I still use with the old receiver. The 2 tape deck connections were designed for separate units that play and record to either cassettes or 8 tracks. I could only recover 1 tape deck, and it's for cassette tapes. I would still use it, but I have no rare cassettes that warrant being digitized if I couldn't find it elsewhere in a newer format. Likewise, I have no need to record anything to tape anymore. The tape deck inputs I truly use as extra auxiliaries. So far, I only have 1 of them hooked up, and it's coming from one of the stereo outputs from the VCR DVD recorder I have. I use the tape deck outputs to record to other line inputs where the receiver is thinking it's recording to tape. When I combine this with the record player, I could use the appropriate dual RCA plugs to 1/8" mini plug cable into my computer's line-in port and digitize old LPs into MP3. I also recovered an Equalizer deck that can go in between 1 tape deck and the receiver. However, with the receiver itself having issues with the balance controls, and the fact that I don't really use it in loud volumes, the Equalizer is not much use for me, so I don't have it hooked up on a regular basis anymore. Another thing I'd like to point out about the RCA connections, they're all black. The plugs for each of the right channels weren't colored red like nowadays, except in the instruction manual as archived here. Well, they're white and brown. This leads me to believe this was made and manufactured before such color coding scheme was even necessary, as today, RCA plugs are used for lots of different audio and video connections. I have speakers hooked to both of the receiver's main and remote outputs. Technically, the receiver requires at least 8 ohms impedance for both of them to be used at the same time, but I don't even know what that means. In any case, given how old everything here is, I'm surprised they even still work. I'm using an old pair of ginormous Bose 501 Series 3 on remote, which are just glorified tabletops. And on main, I have a pair of Panasonic salvaged from another stereo receiver. It was newer, but they somehow managed to die much earlier. Other than digitizing old music with the record player, I use the stereo receiver as an extra pair of speakers when to be used with whatever movie I'm watching or video game I'm playing. And even then, I don't use it for that very often, given that the monitor I have attached to it, the Asus VH236H, have decent built-in speakers in its own right, and for my own listening pleasure. Thank you so much for watching my video on this unique antique. Stay tuned for more antiquated technology and possibly other junk in my face and all over my place. Please subscribe to my channel, youtube.com/Yasha, and tell your friends about it. Feel free to add me on Facebook. I'm willing to accept any friend invites there. Facebook.com/Yasha. Take care, keep on gaming, and stay pony, my friends. P.S. For those awaiting requests to me, such as Busta Groove music, a repost of certain WWE signs, or any K-pop material, please be patient, as I'm also preparing for that while doing this series of videos as well as some other real-life things at the moment.